It was a golden late afternoon when 16-year-old Maya Jackson pushed through the heavy glass doors of Pinnacle Trust, a sleek, upscale bank nestled in the suburbs of a bustling American city. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors, the kind of place that screamed money and power. Maya's worn-out Converse sneakers squeaked faintly as she stepped inside, her heart pounding with a mix of nerves and pride. In her hand, clutched tight, was a check for $10,000, a prize shed earned from a national STEM competition after months of late nights tinkering with circuits and code in her garage. To her, it wasn't just cash. It was proof she could stand on her own 2 feet. Today was the day she'd make her first solo bank deposit. No mom, no hand-holding, just her. The air inside smelled faintly of leather and coffee, the kind of scent that lingers in places where big deals go down. Maya adjusted her backpack, her curly hair tied back in a messy bun, and walked up to the counter. Behind it stood Carl Brennan, a teller in his late 30s with a rumpled gray suit and eyes that narrowed like he was sizing her up from the jump. She slid the check across the glass partition, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "Hi, I'd like to deposit this into my account." Carl's gaze flicked down to the check, then back up to her. A smirk tugged at this corner of his mouth, sharp and mean. 10 grand? For a kid like you? His voice carried just enough to turn a few heads in the lobby. Business men in suits, an older lady with a designer purse, all glancing her way. "Where'd you get this kind of money, huh?" Heat crept up Maya's cheeks, but she squared her shoulders. She had faced worse than a smug teller before. "It's my prize from the National STEM Challenge. I've got the paperwork right here." She unzipped her backpack and pulled out a neat folder: confirmation letters, a certificate with her name in bold, even a photo of her grinning on stage with the trophy. Proof she'd earned every penny. She slid it over, her fingers steady despite the tremor she felt inside. Carl took the stack, barely glancing at it before flipping through like it was junk mail. His smirk didn't budge. "Yeah, well, we'll need to verify this. Takes time. Wait over there." He jerked his head toward a corner of the lobby, dismissing her like she was some annoying fly buzzing around his counter. Maya hesitated, her stomach twisting as Carl's smirk burned into her. This isn't right, she thought, but nodded anyway. "Okay," she said, keeping her tone even. She stepped away, her sneakers scuffing the floor, as she moved to the spot he'd pointed out, a lonely little corner near a potted plant that looked as out of place as she felt. Around her, the hum of the bank carried on, the clack of keyboards, the murmur of polite conversation, the occasional rustle of crisp bills. But as she stood there, she couldn't shake the feeling that every eye in the room was on her, judging, whispering. She clutched her backpack straps tighter, her dad's voice echoing in her head. "Stay cool, Maya. Never let him see you sweat." He was an ex-Marine, tough as nails, and he drilled that lesson into her since she was old enough to tie her shoes. So she stood tall, even as the minutes stretched on and the weight of those stares grew heavier. Little did she know, this was just the start of something way bigger than a deposit gone wrong. Hey, if you're vibing with Maya's story so far, hit that like button. It really helps me keep bringing you tales like this. And if you're new here, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Trust me, you're not gonna see this twist coming. Maya pressed her back against the cool marble wall in Pinnacle Trust's lobby, her hoodie doing little to stop the chill creeping up her spine. Her legs ached from standing, but she wasn't about to give in and sit not while every pair of eyes in the place seemed to be boring into her. The bank hummed with life, a slick businessman jabbering at a teller about his urgent transfer, an old lady with a fancy purse counting out bills like they were gold coins, the soft ching of change hitting a tray. To Maya, it was all background noise. She felt like she'd been shoved into a spotlight she never asked for. Whispers slithered through the crowd, too quiet to catch but loud enough to sting. She flicked her gaze back to Carl behind the counter. He was still messing with her check, turning it over and over like he was some wannabe CSI sniffing out a fake. Every few seconds had glanced her way, those beady eyes glinting with something nasty doubt, maybe, or just plain spite. It made her want to march over and yank it out of his hands. She'd given him everything: the certificate, the letter, Even that goofy photo of her holding the STEM trophy, but he acted like she'd scribbled the check in crayon. What's his deal, she wondered, her fingers digging into her backpack straps. Then she caught IT's shadow shifting behind Carl, just past the frosted glass of the back office. Someone was watching, lurking like a hawk waiting to swoop. Before she could figure out who, the air in the room tightened. A sharp click, clack of heels sliced through the chatter, and Maya's head whipped up. Ellen Voss, the bank manager, strutted out like she was walking a runway to hell. Mid-40s, navy blazer hugging her like armor. Blonde hair yanked back so tight it could have doubled as a facelift. She carried herself like she could fire you with a blink, and honestly, she probably could. Ellen stopped at Carl's station, leaning over his shoulder to eyeball Maya's papers. "What's the holdup?" she snapped, her voice crisp and cold, the kind that made you feel 2 inches tall. Carl tilted his head, dropping his tone, but not enough to hide it from Maya's sharp ears. "Kid's got a 10 grand check, claims it's from some STEM contest. Smells off to me." Ellen's gaze slid to Maya, raking her up and down like she was a stain on the marble floor. "Off, huh?" She crossed her arms, her gold bracelet flashing under the lights. "We've had a string of fraud cases lately, Carl. Can't take risks." Then she cranked her voice up, loud and clear for the whole lobby to hear. "Miss, we're verifying this check thoroughly. Stay put. And don't even think about leaving till we're done." Maya's gut twisted like someone had punched it. This wasn't a delay. It was a slap in the face broadcasted for everyone to gawk at. The businessman smirked like he'd called it. The old lady clutched her purse tighter. Maya wanted to scream, "I'm not a crook. I earned this." But her dad's voice kicked in. "Stay cool, Maya." She swallowed hard, forcing a nod. "Fine. It'll wait." Ellen gave a smug little tilt of her head, like she had just checkmated a rookie, and turned back to Carl. "Run it through the system. Call the issuer if you need to. We're not playing games here." Her heels clicked off into the distance, each step a nail in Maya's patience. Maya shoved her hands into her pockets, brushing her phone. She could call her mom. Adrian would shut this down faster than you could say lawsuit, but she stopped herself. This was her fight, her chance to prove she wasn't some kid who needed saving. Still, as the clock ticked on, a question gnawed at her. Why's this so hard? She'd brought legit, proof more than legit, and they were treating her like she'd robbed the place. Something wasn't adding up. Her eyes drifted back to Carl. He was typing now, slow and twitchy, but his head kept jerking up, scanning the room like he was expecting company. Maya's brain kicked into overdrive. She'd spent years fixing busted gadgets, spotting the tiniest glitches. And Carl, he wasn't just slow. He was nervous, way too nervous. Then she saw him, the guy in the black suit, tall and silver-haired, slipping through the doors like a shadow. Carl's eyes locked onto him for a split second, and his whole body stiffened. Maya's pulse spiked. She didn't know who this dude was, but Carl did. And that meant trouble. She eased her phone out, pretending to check the time, and tapped open her notes app. Her thumbs flew. 5:42 p.m. Carl's jumpy, black suit guy just walked in. Connected? She didn't have the full picture yet, but her gut was yelling loud and clear this wasn't about her check anymore. It was something bigger, something dirty. All right, things are getting spicy, huh? If you're hooked on this drama, smash that like button. It keeps me fired up to drop more. And if you're not subscribed yet, hit it now. The clock on Pinnacle Trust's wall hit 5:50 p.m., each tick pounding in Maya's skull like a hammer on steel. She'd been stuck in that corner for nearly an hour, her calves screaming, her patience hanging by a thread. The lobby was winding down, suits grabbing their briefcases, heading out to their cushy lives, but Maya was still there, pinned like a bug under glass. Carl was back at his post, pecking at his keyboard, but his eyes kept darting to that silver-haired guy in the black suit who was now lounging by a pillar, scrolling his phone like he owned the joint. Too smooth, too unbothered. Maya's grip tightened on her phone, her notes app glaring back at her. 5:42 p.m. Carl's jumpy, black suit guy just walked in. Connected? Her gut churned. She'd fixed enough busted circuits to know when something was shorting out, and Carl was a live wire ready to blow. Whatever he'd slipped to that guy wasn't some innocent handoff, it was a play, and she was caught in the crossfire. Then Ellen Voss stormed back in, her heels cracking against the marble like thunderclaps. She zeroed in on Carl's station, her shadow stretching long and mean across the floor. "Status?" she barked, her voice slicing through the room's fading buzz. Carl wiped a sheen of sweat off his brow, his fingers jittery on the keys. Still verifying, issuers dragging their feet. Ellen's lips thinned into a razor line. "Speed it up. We don't need her." She flicked her chin at Maya, clogging up the place. Then her eyes locked onto Maya, cold and hard. "You still here?" Maya's blood boiled. She was done being the quiet kid they could shove around. She pushed off the wall, her sneakers squeaking loud enough to turn heads. "Yeah, I'm still here," she fired back, stepping into the open. "Because you won't give me my check. I've got every paper you could ask for, so what's the deal?" The lobby went dead silent. The ATM guy froze mid-swipe. Carl's hands stalled over his keyboard, his face paling. Ellen's stare narrowed, but a twitch in her jaw gave her away. She wasn't as cool as she played. "Mind your tone," she hissed. "We're protecting this bank from fraud. It's not personal." "Fraud?" Maya's voice climbed, sharp and steady. "I'm not the one sneaking around. I saw Carl pass something to that guy over there." She jabbed a finger at the black suit dude who snapped his head up, his chillac cracking. "What was that? Tell me!" Murmurs rippled through the room. Carl fumbled, shoving a small black USB drive deeper into his pocket, his voice pitching high. "She's lying. Total BS." Ellen wheeled on him, a low "shut it," Carl slipping through her teeth. Then she faced Maya, her mask slipping just enough to show the sweat on her lip. "You've got no proof, kid. Keep yapping, and I'll have you tossed out." Maya didn't budge. She held up her phone, the notes app blazing. "No proof? I've got times, moves, everything. You want to call my bluff?" She took another step, her words cutting clean. "I'm not some nobody you can bully. What's going on here, or do I need to get my mom involved?" Ellen let out a dry, jagged laugh. "Your mom? What's she gonna do, scold me?" But her voice wobbled, and Carl looked ready to rabbit. The black suit guy started inching toward the exit, his swagger gone. Maya stared Ellen down, her brain spinning. She didn't have it all yet, but she'd hit something raw. That USB wasn't spare change, it was big. Bigger than her $10,000. She'd debugged enough code to smell a scam, and this stank to high heaven. Ellen's next move confirmed it. "Enough!" Ellen snapped, her fingers clicking like a gun cocking. "Security!" A beefy guard lumbered over, his cheap badge glinting. "Take her to the back. She's done here." The guard's meaty hand clamped onto Maya's arm, hard enough to sting. She stumbled, fumbling with her phone, and fired off a text to her mom bank. Trouble now, before he yanked her toward a side door. "This isn't over," she shouted, her voice ringing out as heads turned. "You're screwing up big time." The guard dragged her off, the crowd parting like a sea of gawkers. Maya caught Carl's panicked glance at Ellen, hands shaking, eyes wild. She'd cracked their game wide open, and they knew it. Now it was just a matter of who'd blink first. The back room of Pinnacle Trust hit Maya like a slap stale coffee fumes and the musty tang of old paper choking the air. The guards shoved her into a rickety metal chair, the door slamming shut with a dull thud that echoed in the dim flickering light. Her arm pulsed where he'd grabbed her, but she barely felt it. Her head was spinning, stitching together the mess she'd landed in. Carl's sweaty panic. That USB drive, the black suit guy slinking around. This wasn't about her $10,000 anymore. It was a cover, and she just ripped the mask off something ugly. She yanked her phone from her pocket, the screen lighting up her notes. 5:42 p.m. Carl hands off USB. 5:58 p.m. Ellen calls security. Her thumb hovered over her mom's number. Adrienne Jackson wasn't just a mom, she was a data security ninja who'd crushed bigger fish than this bank could dream of. Maya had wanted to handle it solo, but this was past her pay grade. She'd texted bank, trouble. Now that'd have to be enough. The door flew open before she could second guess it, and Maya's breath caught. Adrienne Jackson stormed in, a force of nature in a slate gray blazer, her short hair sharp as her glare. Those steel-rimmed glasses made her look like she could x-ray your soul. The guard stumbled in behind her, muttering about rules, but she brushed him off like a gnat. Maya, she said, her voice low and steady, slicing through the haze. You good? Maya shot up, nodding fast. Yeah, Mom. I'm fine, but check this. She shoved her phone at Adrian, the notes app blazing. Carl slipped some guy a USB. Ellen's losing it. They're hiding something big, and they've been jerking me around to keep it quiet. Adrian's eyes skimmed the screen, her jaw tightening like a vice. She handed the phone back without a word, then pulled a slim laptop from her satchel. Stay close, she said, her tone pure steel. She spun on the guard, who was still hovering like a lost dog. Open that door, move it. The guy scrambled, keys jangling, and flung the door wide. Adrian marched back into the lobby, Maya trailing tight behind. The place was half dead now, just a few stragglers and Carl, who looked like he'd aged 10 years behind that counter. Ellen stood nearby, arms crossed, her face a storm cloud ready to crack. Ms. Jackson? She started, her smile thin as a razor. Didn't expect save it, Ellen, Adrian cut in, slamming her laptop onto the counter and flipping it open. Her fingers danced over the keys, a blur of precision. She pulled a USB, her own, not Carl's, from her pocket and jammed it in. Maya says you've been stalling her over a clean check. But that's not the real game here, is it? She shot Maya a look. Point him out. Maya nodded toward the black suit guy, still lurking near the exit, his cool vibe crumbling. That's him. Carl gave him the USB. Ellen's smile vanished. She's full of making up stories. Then let's test that, Adrian said, her voice a whip crack. The screen flared with scrolling code, lines flying too fast for Maya to track. I've been chasing this crew for months, cross-referencing leaks with Pinnacle's logs. She hit a key, and the lobby's big screen, usually pimping mortgage deals, lit up with a gut punch. Spreadsheets of stolen client data, account numbers, passwords, all tied to Carl's login with a neon-bright digital signature. The room stopped breathing. Ellen's face went ghost white. The black suit guy bolted for the door, but Adrian's voice pinned him cold. Victor Grayson, she called, loud and clear. Data broker. Been dodging me for months. Looks like he hooked up with some locals to bleed Pinnacle dry. She turned to Ellen, eyes burning. You in on this, or just too blind to see it? Ellen's mouth flapped, no sound coming out. Carl cracked first, his voice a squeak. It wasn't me. She set it up. Said we'd split the payout. The lobby exploded, gasps, phones whipping out to catch the chaos. Maya's pulse hammered. This wasn't just her fight anymore. It was a full-on takedown, and her mom was dropping bombs. Adrian didn't flinch. She ripped her USB out and faced Ellen dead on. You're toast, both of you. Cops will be here in 5. Start running or don't. Your call. Ellen and Carl stood there, frozen like deer in headlights. Adrian turned to Maya, a flicker of a smile breaking her iron mask. Nice work, kid. You just handed me the key to a case he'd been grinding on forever. Maya grinned, her adrenaline still roaring. She'd walked in with a check and stumbled into a scandal that light up the news. But the game wasn't over, not by a long shot. The lobby of Pinnacle Trust buzzed like a live wire after Adriana's bombshell dropped. Carl and Ellen stood there, cuffed and crumbling, as the big screens blared their dirty laundry, stolen client data flashing like a neon sign of shame. Carl's shoulders slumped, his face a sweaty wreck, while Ellen's icy glare flickered, her fists balled up tight. The few stragglers, left wide-eyed customers clutching phones, were eating it up, filming the collapse like it was a blockbuster bust. Maya stood by her mom, her heart thumping with a wild mix of victory and shock. She'd walked in to cash a check and ended up torching a whole corrupt scheme. Adriana didn't blink. She snapped her phone to her ear, her voice cool as ice. Jackson here. Pinnacle Trust data breach. 2 insiders, 1 broker. Roll a team down. Stat. She hung up, tossing a glance at the guard who'd manhandled Maya. You make yourself useful. Keep 'em pinned till the law gets here. The guard jumped, suddenly all in, blocking Carl and Ellen like a linebacker. Ellen snapped, her voice cracking. You can't do this. I've run this place for a decade. You think you can just... You did it to yourself, Adrienne cut in, her tone flat and final. You sold out your own people and tried to bury my kid to cover it. Big mistake. She turned to Maya, a glint of pride in her eyes. You're shot, kid. Say it. Maya stepped up, her sneakers scuffing the marble one last time. She stared down Ellen, then Carl, her voice steady as a rock. I came in here with a check I busted my ass for. You didn't just diss me, you tried to grind me down to hide your crap. But I'm still here, you are not. Ellen's eyes burned, but Maya didn't flinch. She'd faced worse late-night fights with broken code, teachers who'd written her off, but this was her knockout punch. Sirens wailed outside, red and blue lights slashing through the glass. Cops stormed in, badges flashing, trailed by some suit barking orders, probably Pinnacle's big boss, come to clean up the mess. Carl and Ellen were hauled out in cuffs, Ellen's last venomous glare bouncing off Maya like dust. Adrian faced the crowd, her voice ringing out. Pinnacle's getting a full scrub, new rules, new blood. No one gets treated like my daughter did today. Tell your friends. A few folks clapped, others nodded, still filming. Maya spotted Tina, the quiet teller who'd slipped her water earlier, giving a small wave. She waved back, a spark of hope in the wreckage. Weeks later, the fallout hit hard. Headlines screamed, bank bust. Insiders nailed in data heist. And the investigation peeled back layers of filth. Victor Grayson got nabbed at the airport. His slick suit no match for cuffs. Pinnacle revamped everything, tighter security, fair play training, and Tina stepped up as assistant manager. A win for the little guy. But for Maya, it was bigger than that. A month down the line, she stood in her school auditorium, the $10,000 safe in her account, facing a packed house of kids like her. The principal had begged her to talk, share the fire shed sparked. She gripped the mic, her voice steady but raw. I walked into that bank thinking it'd be a breeze, she started, her throat tightening. I'd spent nights in my garage fixing circuits till my hands bled just to win that prize. But they saw a kid, a black girl with a big check, and figured I didn't belong. They were dead wrong. I didn't just fight for me, I fought for everyone who's ever been shoved aside. And here's the truth, you don't need to wait for a hero. You've got the guts right now to stand tall, call it out, and flip the script. The room roared, cheers crashing like waves. Maya stepped back, her chest swelling. She'd turned a gut punch into a battle cry, and she wasn't stopping. At home, she kicked off a project-free workshops for teens on coding, cash smarts, and owning their worth. Adrian had pitched in, but it was Maya's turf. She'd learned the real deal. Justice isn't just winning, it's rebuilding stronger. That night, she stood in her room, staring down her reflection. The girl in the mirror was tougher, fiercer, forged in fire. She smirked. No one was playing her again, not ever. So what's the takeaway from Maya's wild ride at Pinnacle Trust? This isn't just a story about a kid with a check, it's a gut punch reminder of what's real in a world that loves to test you. First off, you've got more power than you think. Maya walked into that bank, a 16-year-old with a dream. And yeah, they tried to knock her down, Carl with his smirks, Ellen with her Ice Queen vibes, but she didn't fold. She stood tall, called out the BS, and flipped the whole game on its head. You don't need a fancy title or a corner office to make waves. You just need guts and a voice. So next time someone tries to dim your light, remember, you're not stuck, you're the spark. Second, justice isn't just winning, it's building something better. Maya didn't stop at busting Carl and Ellen. She turned her fight into a megaphone, teaching kids like her how to stand up and own their worth. That's the real flex, taking the trash life throws at you and turning it into gold for everyone else. It's not about revenge, it's about rewriting the rules so no one gets played the way she did. And finally, trust your gut, it's smarter than you know. Maya didn't have all the answers when she spotted Carl's shady handoff, but she felt that itch, that something's off vibe, and she ran with it. That's what cracked the case wide open. You've got that same instinct, listen to it, dig in, and don't let anyone tell you it's nothing. This story's a ride, right? If it hit you where it counts, if it's got you thinking about your own battles, drop a like. It's the fuel that keeps these tales coming. And if you're not subscribed yet, hit that button. There's more fire like this on the way. Tell me in the comments, what's your takeaway from Maya's win? Let's keep the convo rolling.